New Zealand feeds the world, and when you produce enough food to feed 100 million people, ensuring the safety and the quality of that food is imperative. Globally, the World Health Organization estimates that foodborne illnesses affect 1 in 10 people a year, while in 2009, the economic cost to New Zealand of the 6 most common foodborne illnesses was $161 million. Meanwhile, the total value of our food waste annually is over $500 million, with 30 to 50% of food never reaching human stomachs. As food supply chains become increasingly complex and international, these costly outcomes are due to a lack of traceability, transparency, and trust. So, how can we improve food safety in New Zealand? Now, the word blockchain most likely brings to mind images of Bitcoin billionaires, risky investments, and extreme market crashes. These could not be further from an image of trust. However, I intend to show how the same blockchain technology that underlies cryptocurrencies can enhance traceability, transparency, and trust in the food industry. While its most common application is in peer-to-peer money exchange, blockchain is simply a way of publicly storing any kind of transaction. It is traceable in that each transaction is hash encrypted, linking it to both the previous and the next block on the chain. It is transparent in that all devices have access to the ledger, a database of all transactions, and once made, a transaction cannot be altered. Decentralization means there is no need for trust in a single central authority, making it less susceptible to hacking, corruption, and monopolization. In the event of a conflict, the devices or nodes themselves decide on the valid transaction. Blockchain promotes food traceability from farm to fork. Now, in this context, a transaction relates to the exchange of a good from one stage of the food supply chain to another, requiring a digital signature from both parties. As well as real-time information on the location of goods, blockchain can be used to store information recorded by already established Internet of Things technologies, such as radio frequency identification or RFID. These upload their findings directly to the ledger, meaning there's no room for human error or tampering. From the production stage, where the medication history of animals and soil quality or fertilizer use in plants can be recorded, to the processing stage, where this information can be accessed and added to, logging processing equipment, additives, and expiration dates. Along the storage and transportation links of the chain, real-time information on temperature and humidity is invaluable in avoiding loss and spoilage. This ensures freshness right up and into the retail environment. Consumers can then simply scan a QR code on the label in order to receive detailed real-time information on the goods journey throughout the supply chain. Now, while this is a decentralized system, regulators still play an important role in inspecting facilities and factories to ensure that any manually entered data has not been tampered with. Currently, in the case of a foodborne incident, traceability can take a number of weeks. However, using blockchain, the contaminated good can be immediately located, right down to the batch number, mitigating the need for unnecessary recall and waste. Internet of Things technologies are already well established. However, currently, the information they record is stored in opaque, centralized systems. This way, producers and consumers have the information at their fingertips, promoting consumer confidence as well as smart consumer practices, as we are becoming increasingly skeptical of where our food comes from and the regulatory bodies that control that information. Now, application of blockchain has historically been hindered by misconceptions surrounding this energy-hungry mining process. You may have heard frightening statistics about supercomputers crunching numbers day in and day out, using almost 1% of the world's electricity. However, I would like to note that this is only characteristic of the proof of work system of reaching consensus, in which participants compete to compute complex numbers in order to receive rewards. The alternative proof of stake does not require mining. Instead, in the case of a conflict, the nodes themselves vote on the valid transaction. This means it is a much more environmentally friendly and, being lower power, also a more cost-effective application of blockchain technology. Another misconception is the latency of transactions. However, once again, unlike proof of work, which can only process up to 7 transactions per second, proof of stake can process up to 7,000 transactions per second, a much more usable commercial number. The cost of blockchain implementation need not be excessive, as businesses can use already pre-existing blockchains such as VeChain. And while Internet of Things technologies may initially be more expensive than the current alternatives, these costs are very quickly outweighed by the costs of the disasters they have the potential to mitigate. Each food recall costs the company involved approximately $10 million in direct costs, including notification, retrieval, and destruction. However, the indirect costs can reach the hundreds of millions through the loss of consumer trust. A US survey found that 55% of consumers would temporarily switch brands following a recalled product, while 15% would avoid buying the recalled product in the future, and a further 21% would avoid buying brands made by the same manufacturer. Now, these costs don't even begin to cover the externalities borne by society, such as hospitalization and fatalities. Fonterra witnessed these indirect costs firsthand after the 2013 Clostridium botulinum outbreak in botulism in powdered milk. On top of recall costs, Fonterra lost almost $60 million in sales within the first hours of announcement and faced hundreds of millions of dollars in legal fees. A temporary import ban from China was just one example of the loss of trust from international trade partners. Although it was later found to have been a false alarm, Fonterra was faced with the difficult task of recalling 38 tons of powdered milk from 8 different countries, a number of which had already become incorporated into third-party products. Fonterra themselves admitted their existing systems struggled under the complexity and size of this recall. In incidents such as this, where time is of the essence, blockchain can ensure fast traceability and eliminating any fear and uncertainty. Fonterra has recently teamed up with Alibaba in China on their own blockchain project. However, they aren't the first in China to do so. The earlier 2008 Sanlu milk powder scandal gave rise to Walimai, a tracking app using blockchain and RFID. They are partnered with a number of milk powder producers and supply baby food stores throughout China. As you can see, consumers can see geographical and detailed information about the product. And Walimai has found that customers are prepared to pay a 20% premium for the peace of mind that their product assures. And for businesses, as well as giving them a competitive advantage, it also has the ability of passively collecting consumer data. While Walimai is so far only available in Asia, this technology is quickly becoming an international norm, with giants such as IBM and Walmart now on board. In order to remain competitive, as well as meet upcoming international trade standards, New Zealand's other industries will need to follow suit. This goes beyond disaster mitigation into protecting our unique brand of New Zealand quality. Our Mānuka honey is world-renowned for its medical benefits. However, currently low-grade honey undermines trust in the industry, with more Mānuka-labelled honey being sold than is officially produced. Blockchain would make it transparent for consumers and retailers to see if their product has been tested by a Ministry of Primary Industries approved laboratory and has the relevant criteria to qualify as Mānuka. Wine is our 5th largest export, with award-winning wine regions such as Marlborough creating trusted brands in themselves associated with the highest quality. In 2016, the government passed legislation protecting the intellectual property of these geographical indicators. Blockchain can help in further protecting these unique wine regions and enabling customers to trace back exactly where on the map their wine comes from. What's more, blockchain can increase ease and awareness as consumers look to make more informed decisions on cruelty-free, fair trade, and organic food choices, as it has been shown that consumers are prepared to pay a premium for these products, provided they can trust the origins. Furthermore, as demand increases for less processed and therefore more perishable foods, efficient traceability is important in order to maintain freshness and mitigate waste. Finally, over half of the products recalled so far in New Zealand this year were due to undeclared allergens. With the growing prevalence of allergies, mitigating food fraud is more important to our health and lives than ever before. In order to improve traceability, transparency, and trust, and in order to protect both the integrity of our industries, as well as the health of our consumers here and overseas, the New Zealand food industry must adopt blockchain technology in the very near future. Thank you.
Wonderful. Judges, any questions?
Thank you. Just a question, what does latency of transactions mean?
Absolutely. So that just simply means how slow it takes or how fast relatively it takes for the transaction to be processed. So as I showed, 7 seconds is pretty slow, whereas 7,000 transactions could easily be used in a commercial setting.
Can you explain how using blockchain would have changed Fonterra's botulism situation?
Absolutely. So in the WP80 report that Fonterra released afterwards, they actually admitted that they needed to take a look at their recall systems that were currently in place, as they were not up to scratch to deal with a recall of this size over so many different countries. So as well as enabling really quick identification of the root of the problem, it then also has the added ability of giving consumers that added trust that everything is under control, as they can see, directly where even if perhaps a consumer had already bought the infected product, they can have the peace of mind by tracing back that, oh no, mine did not come from this exact plant or wherever processing facility in New Zealand.
But you still got to have trust that somebody at the plant has put in the correct information, right? It comes down to that. How do you ensure that?
That is correct. And there are obviously increasingly Internet of Things technologies that measure these things and get rid of the need for human entering of data. So things like rainfall and sensors for fertilizer use and soil quality that we do have. There will obviously always be a need for some human data to be entered. However, once again, currently that data is also being stored in an opaque centralized system. So at least if it's open for scrutiny by the public, then...
And how would the public access that information?
So as seen with Wali Mai, kind of like there, you have simply on your phone, you have an application. I've downloaded it on my phone. So you just need to scan a label. It could be a QR tag or near frequency communication, sort of like what your PayWave uses. So you just hold it near the product and it appears immediately. You've got a whole list, where it's come from, what it contains. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks,
No problem.